Hey folks, Steve here with another Pax Romana Greco-Persian Wars video for you today. We are going to be looking at turn 3 of 10, this turn covering 500 to 475 BC. And we have seen basically two turns of the Greeks just beat around. there's there's no mistaking it. And I'm having some thoughts on like, am I reading the scenario wrong? Or is it just uh, the poor Greeks are supposed to take their lumps for a while, and maybe that's just what it is. I mean that could be the case. The reason I say this is that um, the special scenario from the C3I magazine does state that the East includes Persia and Carthage, and that you use the different counters, but that it is considered one power, Persia and Carthage. So when I read that, because the um, setup information displays their economic information here, and they include all of the East and Carthage as part of like home provinces and stuff, with one treasury that like all the money that Carthage makes goes into the same pot as all the money that Persia makes. And the kind of the weird thing about that is that the Greeks are certainly disadvantaged by that pure economic power that exists. It is not hard um, for the East player to wield that economic power with much greater flexibility than the Greeks. And when you really look at like what do the Greeks have, even at the start of the game, it's like okay, they got Massilia. There was a garrison out here. We turned into a town. A little bit of stuff around Magna Graecia, and then Greece proper. And if you count the Cyrenaican, which is off camera down to the south a bit, the Cyrenaican colony, like yeah, there's stuff around, but they don't. I have not felt like this game so far, 1/5 of the way through the game, that the Greeks really have a lot of capability to flex their muscle. Now, their advantage that they're given in the game is that they get Brutium as a home province, which means they can raise uh, hoplites here, heavy infantry, hoplites there. Um, but they're still embroiled fighting in Sicily, and like when you figure it's like on any given front, the Greeks have to fight Carthage, which has plenty of its own territory to kind of contend with, and at the same time be potentially dealing with the East. It's a really tall order. Now, the one benefit that heavy infantry have, I should talk about this, right? Like, it's really hard for the Greeks to get cavalry. You can get them with mercenaries, or you can recruit them in Narbonensis or Hispania, I guess. But you're predominantly going to be looking to raise heavy infantry. The one benefit these guys have is that for 3 battle points, you're only spending 2 talents. That's adverse to most other units where it's like 1 talent for 1 light infantry, 1 talent for or I'm sorry, 2 talents for 2 infantry. And so um, there's this sort of there's this tricky thing where if that's the Greeks' only real advantage, I mean they get some elite units, sure. In the early game, they just don't have much to go off of. They are very defensive. A lot of events are really against the Greeks. The invasion of Greece proper has created a really rough situation stability wise, which maybe I shouldn't have retreated as much as I did, but I couldn't, like, there was no other way to do it without totally losing more units. Um, so it just feels like the Greeks are having a really tough time. They have to make a break somewhere. They have to somehow chip away at the Persians' momentum so that they can decrease the GOP and civilization point advantage that the East has and somehow come out ahead. But they've not been afforded, enough good leaders to actually go on decent campaigns other than be very reactive. And their economy is already behind the Persians a decent bit, where like, okay, they're just going to get outspent in terms of recruiting units, that they have to find some breakthrough of a situation to occur where they can hit back. Now, the thing about the way the economy works in this game is like the Persians have more money to spend, and thus they can spend on more stuff, and that more stuff can be invested into their economy, which can get them more stuff, which can allow them to invest more in their economy and get more stuff, right? Um, so the fact that, yeah, the uh, towns that were springing up in Asia Minor very easily and are in relative safety, have just meant that it's, the Persians continue to make more money. That's without even accounting for the potential money that the Carthaginians could be making, that I just haven't used them as much, so it hasn't mattered as much. But the thing that's tricky is, like, there is no requirement that any of the money I spend in a given turn has to go to Carthage versus Persia or whatever. I can spend all of my money in Persia if I wanted to, or all of my money in Carthage if I wanted to, or for Carthaginian things. There's nothing in the rules that I saw for the scenario that dictates we have to spend the money a certain way. So you had that really big army that we built up with a lot of cavalry for Cambyses, um, and it just meant that Carthage didn't build anything, but Carthage didn't have to, because they didn't really fight the Greeks much at all in the first turn, and the second turn there was some, but um, there's this weird sort of balance, like that advantage of Carthage in the east just together makes it really hard to figure out, like, well, how can the Greeks come back now? In the late game, I know there's going to be some goodness available, because of Alexander the Great's going to come on with the Conqueror card, and he's going to do a lot of hopefully amazing stuff. But by the time he gets there, will it even matter? Because what you would, I guess, expect to have happen is Alexander shows up, and then he runs all the way through Asia Minor, kind of conquers that, or has some guys down here, takes over Egypt, and like conquers all of the East, right? That's what you would hope happens following a historical narrative. Now, whether or not that's actually going to happen, I think, is what's tricky. Will the game already be lost at that point, and would it even matter? Because even if the Greeks did very well on turns 9 and 10, and they get 10 victory points, that might be too late if the East has just had too much of an advantage. Now, all of these towns that are being built could get taken over by Greeks, and then the Greeks get the benefit of the towns. They have to invest money in repairing the towns, very likely, but they could do that and turn all of this into a heavy benefit for the Greeks. But that's going to take some tough going, for certain. So the Greeks unfortunately haven't developed a grand strategy for how they're going to get victory points. I think the Sicilies is probably a good place to focus on, and maybe knocking Carthage out would be another good one. But otherwise, I just don't know what else they should be focusing on yet. Um, and it's tricky. They have to make some ground somewhere. If we get another couple of turns where the East player gets another 5 victory points, so putting even more on top of the lead, there would be no way for the Greeks to win at all. We might have to call it on turn like 5 or 6, because the Greeks just can't make any more headway. So I feel it feels right now like the Greeks ought to deserve some sort of buff or something in the earlier game, because they're just getting smacked around, and that heavy infantry advantage just isn't helping them as much as I might have thought. But I guess some of this is just coming down to the Greeks have not been allowed to be on the offensive very much. I mean, if we get one good turn where we have a lot of offensive oomph, all of this could change. Maybe change very quickly, in the Greek players' favor, or at least put them in a better position to fight back. And we've just not really seen that happen yet. So that's a little bit of an intro. I felt like I needed to talk through where we're at with the game, just because it has felt like a rough show for the Greeks. Even with the East not doing everything that they want to do, like conquering Egypt, they have still enjoyed a pretty safe position in the game board and relative safety, expanding out. And right now, they could still be building more and more towns and everything else. Like, it's just not really a concern for them. So, yeah. let me put a pause here, collect my thoughts, and I'll talk through the introductory phases very, very quickly. They're already done, or most of them are already done, but we'll cover that very quick. Okay, so in talking about the economic stuff, I've already taken care of all of the removals, the new leaders. So we have Gilon or Galen, depending on how you want to pronounce that, fairly historical figure who is in Syracuse. He's actually pretty good. The combat ability is just a 2. Oh my gosh. See how congested things are on the map with all this stuff. He's a 2-5, so 2's okay in terms of combat, but it's that sweet 5 campaign rating, which does incentivize the Greek player to go on some sort of campaign in central Mediterranean. We also have Leonidas, that cool guy. Here in Sparta, he is a 2-4, so yeah, he's okay. He's all right, middle of the road. The Carthaginians get a 1-3 leader. He is meant to be some historical figure, but he doesn't get his own counter, so he's just the 1-3 Carthage leader, so not very good. So definitely outdone by Galen, or Gilon. So definitely another sort of incentive to do that. The East leader for this turn is Darius the first. He's a 3-3. Now he's considered an elite leader because of the tactical ability. So 3-3 is quite potent. The 3 combat rating is, but he's kind of slow. So he might only get 4 movement points in a given action, and if we roll a 1, which means he can't go very far. So I definitely think the East player is going to want to use that leader and leverage him for like naval movement and kind of get well situated to operate thusly, to operate that well. But we'll see how it goes. I've been trying to think through how we want to operate in this space. But that's it for the sort of leader placement stuff. I guess that's the one sort of comparison. Like the Greeks get 2 leaders, and then the East player still only gets 2 leaders, 1 for each major power. But again, there's no restriction on what you use your activation markers for. So you could just activate that Persian leader 4 times if we have 4 markers, and activate Carthage 0 times, or vice versa, or some mix. And so it's that tricky thing to figure out. Now, for manpower, in purchasing new stuff, this is where it feels unfair, where like the East player just has so much money. They had like 30 some talents, so they can spend out a huge amount to buy units. And here is kind of where I think we're going to go. I'm going to move the camera so you guys can see the expenditures. So this is what everyone's building. You can see kind of a tough call. Now, if you actually add up all the battle points, maybe it's not so strange, but Carthage is going to build 2 galleys, 3 light infantry, 1 cav. The Persians are going to build 2 galleys, a cav, and 6 light infantry. The Greeks don't have as much money. What money they do have, they want to consistently get their heavy infantry on the board to fight back. We have some ability to maybe get some mercenaries for some cav. So we built 4, gosh, I can count, 4 heavy infantry, and technically we also spent a spare point rebuilding the Spartan elite heavy infantry stationed in Pella. And so those guys got a bump up. So that is the purchases for the turn. Now, where we put these guys, it's like neither player is supposed to know what the other players are building, but I'm playing myself, so it's just that easy. It doesn't really matter the order here. But for what matters, or for how it matters, we're going to put the Carthaginian fleets in Carthage. So now we have this big stack of 3 war fleets. with the stack here, so Carthage is getting crowded. And then what I was going to do is I was going to have 2 light infantry built in Sicily. So they're going to go into here to help the Libeum. I'm putting another light infantry here in Sardinia to help defend that, so that these Greeks can't just come in here and start disrupting our control over there. And then the cav we have to put in Carthage because there's only so many places that cav can be built, so we're going to do that. So Carthage is feeling pretty good. I mean, they're going to hold their base. As long as they're a distraction to the Greeks, then the East, the Persians proper, can wreak as much havoc as they really want. For the 2 galley squadrons for the East, they're going to go into Antioch with the leader. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to end up having Darius come down here and take control of the big army that got left behind. But we're going to want to sort of make that an easy thing for him to start. So we're going to put 2 light infantry with Darius in Antioch. We're going to put 1 cav here as well. We built the cav because it's the only place we can build it, but we're going to send that cav out to Asia Minor, I think. It needs reinforcement elsewhere. And then the other light infantry can be built in Asia Minor. I'm going to put 2 here. I'm going to put 2 here. And the reason why we're doing that is so that we help protect the coast, and we just make it harder for the Greeks to try to take Asia Minor back. When you look at how many strength points are actually distributed in Asia Minor, it's a lot. And so no matter what the Greeks would do if they went on the offensive, they'd be fighting through a lot of these guys, and those same units would probably withdraw together and sort of form some aggregate army in defense if they really had to. And that's it for them. And then for the Greeks, we're going to end up, I think, putting... It's kind of weird how I want this to go. Do you put them all with these units or not? And it depends on if we're going to go on an offensive or not. So I think we'll have 1 get raised in Rhegium, and then we're going to put the other 3 in with Sparta. And that should work for our activations, or at least well enough. We'll have to see. Whole idea here is we're going to have these guys sort of support one another and continue to fight Carthage, but this army can grab guys from around here if we wanted to try to go on the offensive. And so that's it for the manpower phase, and then we'll do the activations. It is the Greeks first. They're going to pay their point, their talent to activate, and with 1 minor move, or I'm sorry, we need to draw a event card first. Oh, this is good. Naval Ambush, which, let's see if we can get this to focus. So moving into a port or naval transport point, we can ambush them and maybe cause a combat. So that's a good one for the Greeks to hold on to. We're going to spend 1 talent to repair Pella. So get that back for 1 minor move. And then for another minor move, we're going to take Galen and put him in this army here. And then for our major move, we will activate the Spartans, I think. And they're going to have 7 movement points. which isn't great, but would be enough to go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I think that's it. So they were trying to gather more forces to be able to actually do something worthwhile there, repair the town, get Galen set up, and now we have the Spartans kind of ready to rock and roll, maybe to invade Asia Minor, or at least put some pressure on the East. So now we'll have the East marker, first East marker, talent paid, event card. Rebellion. So we're going to roll 2d6 to determine where the rebellion is going to take place. I rolled a 9. And let's see, I think there's a special rebellion table for this. And it is in here somewhere. All right, rebellion table. We rolled a 9. It is in Sardinia, which is actually against Carthage. Interesting. Okay. Well, I'm going to have to go look up how this is going to work. Sardinia. Okay. Well, we'll look up how a rebellion works, guys, and then we'll be back for the rest of the activation. Okay, so the actual rebellion, which happened in Sardinia, follows a certain instruction in the rulebook. Each region that can rebel has a different effect. The person who pulled the card, which in this case is the Eastern player, gets to place a barbarian infantry somewhere in Sardinia. The only place they can put it is here, really, or that they would want to, right? Why would you put it anywhere else? So now if we had left that space with just a garrison, they could have been placed there, but only the Greek player would have put it in that location, right? So this isn't a big deal, and in fact, this doesn't even disrupt Carthage's control and thus the Eastern players' control of Sardinia. They retain control, even with that barbarian there. So I don't know when that guy goes away, but it is actually making it harder for the Greeks to come into Sardinia and cause problems for the Eastern player. So actually, in a weird twist of fate, again, these event cards that could hurt the Eastern player just don't quite manage to actually have an effect, which is funny. Okay, so we're going to have the actions. I think for a major move, we are going to have the Eastern player activate Darius, depending on how you want to pronounce that. I rolled a 3, plus 3 is just 6. Just 6 movement points. But what we're going to do is we're going to take this guy in the galley. We're going to leave that, we're going to leave that guy there. And we're going to hop on a boat. We're going to spend the 3 movement points to get down to here, which is controlled by a friendly. We're going to put these guys together in the army. And then I guess I'm going to leave the galley there because I can't really take them with us. So that would be 3 movement points. And then 1, 2, 3 to attack the city here. Now the funny thing is, I don't think the Egyptians have a mechanism to actually what do you call it? They don't have a mechanism to repair the city, so it's actually a lot weaker than we would ordinarily be dealing with. And just trying to understand, let's see. still has 3 wall points, so we still have to deal with that. But we adjust the map over a little bit, so we would have the city, which would be worth 3, and then really just 5. So really it's 8. They have 8 strength points there. The cav don't count. 3 from the city with some reduced walls, but that's as low as the city can go. And then 5 more for the heavy infantry and the 2 lights. This is opposed by what is effectively, let's see, 11 strength points for the Eastern player. So I think 11 to 8 doesn't give a shift. Oh no, it does. It gives 1 shift. 11 to 8 gives the Eastern player 1 shift. And then we do have a good leader, so that's enough. So 2 shifts for the Eastern player attacking here. So we'll roll the dice. 2 shifts. Ugh. I rolled another 1 as the defender. I swear, if you watch all the videos, I've done that a lot. And then the Persians rolled a 3. So 2 shifts. I think what we want to do is eat the 10 points loss, or the 10%, and bump this up to a 50%. And so what this is going to do is 50% of 8 is 4, right? Obviously. We can't take any more off the city, which means we have to take them off these guys. And so it would be... I've got... Let's see, do they have a reduced side heavy infantry anywhere? They do. Okay, we'll swap that guy out. So we take 2 step losses, or 2 BP losses there, and then 2 BP losses off the light infantry. Now, this guy's still alive, and these guys are still there. And let's see. And I think this sends these guys back to here. I think it's the way that would go. I'm reasonably confident that they would go back to there. So this leaves Alexandria, not Alexandria, still under the control of the Egyptians, but they basically have 1 more hit to go, and that's it. And then we have, for the 11 strength points, we just lose 1 from the Eastern Army, so they're just going to lose 1 guy, and that's really it. It's pretty easy peasy, straightforward stuff. So that's the major move, and then the minor move, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll for this cav and just see how far I can get him. You can move 3 movement points, which is enough if we go by C to go do all the way up to let's see. Oh, Nicomedia is not actually a place. Okay, we'll go here. So 3 movement points, that's enough to move by sea along the controlled coast of Asia Minor to get to Nicomedia, or not this place right here, which is kind of is very close to where I need them to be. And then another minor move, I think, will be spent to we'll activate this guy here, and he has enough movement points to join up with the army once again, Darius's army. So that's it for the Eastern activation. They didn't have to do a whole lot, but they're about to take Egypt, which is good for them. We'll go ahead and start pulling from the cup now. and we get a Greek activation. So Greek activation, they're going to pay their talent, they're going to pull their event card, and it's a frickin' rebellion. Okay. So rolling 2 dice. Got an 8, and an 8 is Hispania. So this actually would be one that we could see affect the Carthaginians, now that the Greek player can place it. And we need to read. The player who played the card eliminates any 1 garrison unit in Hispania and then places 3 barbarian infantry in either any 1 unoccupied space that does not contain a city or a town in Lusitania or Numantia in Tarraconensis if unoccupied. These units may not move, withdraw, retreat. Units moving into a space in Hispania that is connected to the above space pay 1 extra movement point for each space so entered. Okay. Okay. So I think, as the Greeks, and we're looking at Hispania over here, eliminates any 1 garrison unit in Hispania. So we'll go ahead and knock this guy out. That actually has the net effect of removing control in Baetica, because the Carthaginians own 1 space, a tribe owns another, which is not enough for control. So they lose that. That's actually fairly important in terms of provinces control. That helps knock down the Carthaginian cash flow. And then it's 3 barbarian infantry in any 1 unoccupied space that does not contain a city or town in Lusitania, which is definitely better than Tarraconensis. And so I think we're going to do right there. It doesn't do a whole lot to hurt this spot here, but that just kind of slows down expansion into Lusitania. Okay, cool. Well, that was good. That was good. That was good for the Greeks. They like that. Now they get to do their actions. And this is going to be a tough decision. I do need to think about what I want to try to achieve this this activation. It could be go to Carthage. It could be go to Asia Minor. And I'm not 100% certain I know which is the best path right now. So let me think on this and we'll be back. Okay, guys, so in the interest of keeping the videos moving on faster and not having you guys watch me just laboriously watch over every step and have this be an hour and a half long video every time, I just went and played the Greek activation. So we spent 1 move. We didn't roll high enough to do what I wanted to do, so this 1 infantry moved from here to here, which is kind of a bummer. The other minor activation is I took a galley from here to here. Now, instead of fighting, the Carthaginian fleet withdrew, so now there's a stack of 3 galley squadron fleets in Carthage, acting as a defensive force, but may ultimately go on the offensive because it's a high concentration of naval power that the Greeks are going to have to deal with one way or another, I guess. But we then activated Galen, however that you choose to pronounce that, and he spent all of his movement. He rolled decently well. He ended up with 7 movement points, but he started here, so he just bashed in the Lilybaeum until they took it. They were able to take it. They had I rolled poorly enough and had enough odd shifts that he didn't lose any steps or battle points in wearing Lilybaeum down, which was really, I guess, the important thing that occurred there. And I just sort of ignored siege expertise because neither player wanted to spend the money for it. They have other things they need to spend their money on. So essentially what that means is that the Eastern player lost a town, the Greek player gained a town. The Eastern player lost a province. They actually lost control of Western Sicily because now their only presence is here in Panormus with just this 1 infantry who will probably get snuffed out very quickly. And so right now, in terms of the control of the Sicilies, the Greeks are gaining. Had we rolled better, I would have actually had this guy come in and take Melita. but he didn't roll high enough, so we just didn't get far enough. But we're still looking pretty good from that general angle, and so I would like to see if I can't make some progress that way in taking the Sicilies. I do think that the Greeks, if they can get control of the Sicilies, that is a major boon to getting some points back on the board. So there you go. So that actually was something good for the Greeks for once. We'll go ahead and pull the next chit. Very likely going to be an Eastern marker. And no, we got a Greek one. Okay, so the Greeks get to go twice in a row, which is actually probably a bad thing because it means that the Eastern player is going to get to go a lot at the end of the turn. So they pay their last talent there. They're going to draw a card. We get Bounteous Harvest again, so we're going to roll a d6. We rolled a 1, which I'm sure is probably something like Italy. So if I can find my player aid sheet. Oh, it's actually Asia Minor. Well, gee shucks. So Eastern stability goes up by 1. Whoop-de-doo. Okay. All right, so I think one minor move is going to be to repair, spend the Greek player's last talent and repair Lilybaeum, so we get the full benefit of that. And then what I would like to try to do is, let's see, what can be done here? If we try to cross from here to Carthage, they're going to get blocked by 3 galleys and probably get their ass whooped. So we probably don't want to do that. What I might try to do is let's try to activate this heavy infantry for a minor move. He gets 5 movement points, which is actually enough to do what I would like to do, which is he's going to naval move. He's going to try to get through here. He's good to go, and then he lands here and takes out that garrison. So this becomes Greek controlled. There's no recruitment allowed, no money gained, but that will give GOP is the important thing. Now, tricky. What to do? I think we'll activate our Athenians, and we will have them do a naval move to Lilybaeum as well. We'll make sure okay, yeah, fine going through that transit point. And then for the major move, who do we activate for this? That's what's going to be tricky. Well, let's go ahead and activate Galen and just see where we get. So he gets 9 movement points. I think we'll go ahead and try to stomp over here. And I don't think... Let's see if they can try to withdraw. I'm not sure they're actually... No, I don't think he can withdraw at all. So almost assuredly going to make him go poof. Yep, this guy goes poof. So that's 1-2 movement points. And then what do we think? Do we think it's worth trying to attack Carthage? In Carthage? I think we could get there, but would we be able to win? Um, yeah, it's not the worst plan, actually, amusingly enough. Um, I don't know. This is tough. Could he get there? Well, what we would be doing is go. We've got 7 movement points left. We would spend 3 to get to here, basically, and then we'd have 4 left, and we could attack twice. So let's see if we can pull it off. I'm willing to try it. Um, I am willing to try it for better or for worse. We can try it. So we'll roll to go through here. They're good to go. So where they're going is by naval here through here to here. And they land right there. And then that's down to 4 movement points, and then they attack. And so if you want to see what this would look like, it's actually kind of interesting. The Carthaginian player may actually want to fight a field battle, because if they just, well, let's figure out the math here and try to deal with the glare. I'm sorry for this. If we go in the city, we would have 11 strength points against 7, so that would actually be our advantage. If we fought outside, we would only have, well, it would be 1 shift each. So it would be, because he's the better leader than the Carthaginian leader, but they would have probably 1 advantage on the Greeks in terms of numbers, right? Because it would be 11 to 7, which would be 1 shift. So yeah, it would be, up to the die roll. If we fought a field battle, it would be 9 to 7, which is 1 shift offset by his shift, but then we get 1 shift for having the cavalry advantage. We wouldn't get a super great one, I don't think. Or maybe we would. Maybe we would have supremacy. Trying to understand how this works out. 3 times as many cavalry. Well, they do have that, and that's worth 3 shifts. So it would actually be 3 shifts to the Carthaginians in this case. So I think that's what they'll do. They'll fight a field battle, and we'll see what happens. I'm willing to see how this goes. This might be bad as the Greeks. So Carthage roll, they rolled a 2, which is not good, and the Greeks rolled a 4. So I think they spend their 3 reducing this guy down to a 1, so that the Carthaginians are the winner. And then the 20% of, actually, let me make sure I get this right, because maybe it's not, I might have miscalculated that because I forgot to count the Greek cavalry. So it would have been 9 to 8, which would have been 0. So they would have only gotten 2 shifts. So maybe they would reduce this down to just 2, and then it's 2 either way. So 20% of 8 is 2. So we probably end up having that be how they lose it, and then 20% of 9 is also 2, and they would probably lose it from those guys. Okay, and then they get pushed back again, and I think we would attack again, right? Might as well try, and then this time it would be 7. Really interesting. 7 to 6. Interesting. 7 to 6. That's not as good. 7 to 6 is no shifts. We still have 3 for cavalry superiority, but the better leader. So 2 shifts both ways, or 2 shifts for the Carthaginians, I should say, in a field battle. Now they rolled a 6. That's going to be bad. And these guys rolled a 5. I think for the 2 shifts, they bring these guys down to 3. So that 30% of 7 being 2, you could lose like that. And then 60% of 6 is 4. And so would be, yeah, you have to lose, we'd have to lose this guy, and then there's no other way to lose 3 more without really screwing the pooch. And it's easier to get hoplites than it is to get cav, so we'll lose these 2 heavy infantry, which really sucks. And then these guys will be heavily reduced and stuck back in Thapsus. So ballsy move, probably not the best. And obviously the Carthaginians are a-okay in their spot. So that's it for that activation. I know that was kind of a long one, guys. I'm sorry. We'll go to the cup and see what we get. We get the East marker. So spending a talent, drawing the card, Successor Wars, roll on. And then we are going to reference the rules again, special rules. This is going to be another one of those, like, this sucks really bad things. So they're going to have these guys activate. They're going to get 9 movement points. They're going to go 1, say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and attack here. And yeah, I'm just going to take care of this off camera, guys. Well, we had the Greek army eliminated down here in Thapsus. Not a great situation, to be sure, but the Carthaginians, the Eastern player decided to go ahead and let the Carthaginians activate. We had a couple of minor moves. They're not that important to really talk about, but they came down here and battered them to oblivion. Now, I could have maybe tried to withdraw them out. The first time we tried, the cavalry superiority screwed us up, and then I figured I might as well just let them die, because we were going to lose there's only a couple of units here, rather than give these guys the freedom to continue trying to move up through here. Sort of a weird decision space, but, you know, I'd still call what we've done as the Greeks in this sector a victory, but now it's, you know, are we going to see the Carthaginians fight back? Probably not. There's really one more, or there's a couple more Eastern activations, and they want to focus on Egypt. They don't want to let Egypt go by yet again. So we'll pull the next chit, and it is another East. So they will pay their talent. Pull the card. Stability check. Oh gosh. Well, we're gonna play the stability check. I think this doesn't really matter because if I remember right, the stability check requires you have a unit in a capital, and the Greeks already technically do. Yeah, this doesn't really matter. So this is kind of a dud. So next would be the actual activation stuff. So here's the funny thing. Because we have this unit here, the Carthaginians have nothing that they can do with a minor move to take this back. Because anything that has, any minor move is one unit, so the Carthaginians could take one unit, but they're probably going to get their ass kicked by the hoplites there. So I think the Eastern player needs to fix this up. Needs to try to fix this up. So what they're going to try to do is they're going to activate their leader, who has 7 movement points. He's going to spend 3, 1, 2, 3 to attack. There is basically four battle points there. We're attacking with 11. And I just messed a bunch of stuff up over here on my player cards. So that's very upsetting to me right now. Oh, that sucks. That sucks. Okay, I'm gonna have to recount a bunch of stuff later. Great. I've got too messy of a table here, guys. That's my problem. Okay, 11 of 4 is 3 shifts. And then +1 for the leader. So 4 shifts. And let's see, 4, we would reduce that down to none. 70% of 1 would be 1. So, yeah, this guy is eliminated. This guy is also technically eliminated. And we take the city. So the independent city is gone. And the Eastern Empire gets yet another city. And we basically are going to have a garrison here. I'm not sure the garrison actually does anything, so maybe we won't put the garrison there. We'll probably leave behind one guy here. And then excuse me. Oh my goodness. We could try, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, we don't have enough to do that. We could try to come over here and take Cyrenaica. I'm not sure it's a great option, but it's certainly worth a try. So we would take, would be 3, we would use the rest of our movement points. No, maybe we shouldn't do that. Oh, this is tough. This is tricky, actually. How to get over into Cyrenaica safely. That's the big challenge. Because we're not going to have enough movement points to make it back. So technically we can't try, is the weird thing in the rules. Maybe we stop here. We stop here, and with a minor move, with the minor move, we do a rebuild of the city. We spend the rest of our talents to do it, and we sit pretty here. That's our minor move. I think that's legal. And with our other minor move, I would probably just move the galleon. So we're looking pretty good there. That means we gain control of Egypt, which is going to be worth a lot of money as the Eastern player, and they're feeling pretty darn good. Okay, then we go to the cup again. And we get the Roman activation, which is really the Etruscan activation. I don't think there's really anything to do with them. They're just going to get killed, so I'm going to leave them there and do nothing, which means that the final chit is the East. But see, here's the thing. I wanted to spend the money to rebuild Alexandria, or the city that is not called Alexandria, which means I am now broke, which means I can't actually spend the talent to get the activation, and so that is the end of the turn. That's the end of this phase anyway. So now we're going to look at the attrition and isolation and the victory stuff. I'm going to do all the calculation off camera, and we come back, we'll do a quick wrap up. Okay, and so in calculating all of the points, so the Greeks currently have 13 civ points, 14 GOP, and the Eastern player has 16 civ points, 16 GOP. So it's actually, I mean, as of this turn, I think having a lot to do with the fact that Lilybaeum was taken, Western Sicily was taken as the Greeks, that it's evened out a little bit in terms of the actual measurements. So the Greeks aren't that far behind in civ points. They're really not that far behind in GOP either. It's just they need to actually do something to make headway. And I think I've got a way for the Greeks to come back. But this turn, as of turn 3, the Eastern player scores another 5 victory points. So we are now at 15-0. And we're almost, we're basically almost a third of the way through the game. So something occurred to me as I was counting up the civ points. The Greeks have a fair number of towns, and they are the only faction in the game that can actually create more cities. And it occurred to me as I was like going through the motions and seeing that, yeah, if you look at the situation for the East, they've basically gotten all the cities that they could conceivably get. They have Carthage, they have Antioch, and they now have what would be Alexandria. So they have 3 cities, which is great. They have only 7 towns. One in Baetica, which is the only Carthaginian town, and then they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or I'm sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 towns in the East. But those towns will never become cities. So the only option that the Eastern player now has, if they want to increase civ points, is to build more towns, which they could certainly do. It's certainly within their power to create a lot of towns. But that's the only option they really have. By comparison, the Greeks could create more towns, which is fine. But there's one key thing that I've just not done because I've needed the units, but maybe I should rethink my operations, is that I could turn many of these towns into cities. I just have to sacrifice some money, which the Greeks don't have a lot of anyway, but they could, we spend the money and we give up a hoplite unit, heavy infantry. But we could easily, create some and spend the money and turn Pella or one of these other areas into cities. And very quickly, because we're going to, in effect, gain 2 civ points every time we do that, we could outpace the East in civ points. That would be one way to start eating into the victory point difference. That wouldn't win the game, though. Even if we won, if the Greeks got the civ point victory points, but the East remained ahead in GOP for the rest of the game, the East would still win the game because you get 3 victory points for GOP, you get 2 for civ, so the Greeks can be competitive in civ points if they can get there. They still need to take stuff from from the east, whether that means taking out Carthage, um, or taking out more of the east. Now, the thing is, even if we were to reduce Carthage's holdings to just Carthage itself, um, technically the east could subsidize Carthage and build up a big Carthaginian army potentially to fight back. So there's still, we can't just focus on Carthage, shut them down, and then the Greeks are in good shape. We're going to have to still deal with both powers and the immense wealth of the east, but it's at least competitive. Now, if we are able to, say, take the Baleares Islands, I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong, don't worry about it. If they take Sardinia, then we would see a shift of a couple of GOP points, enough that the Greeks could be ahead in GOP points. So there's a path forward, but now that the East has finished taking Egypt, they can focus on, say, Cyrenaica. They could swing back up and start taking Crete and Rhodes. There are some things that could slow them down, but it's certainly still feasible that that could happen. So I'd say the advantage is still to the east. I do see a path forward for the Greeks, but they've just been having a hell of a time operating, and their stability continues to decline. I forgot to do that for being behind in victory points again. So it's still feeling like an uphill battle, but I think the Greeks have a path forward. I can see where we could make gains. We lost a whole army over here. We at least reduced the Carthaginians. The one problem is going to be going into turn 4. There's going to be another Etruscan army that gets spun up here. So I had left these guys here as the Carthaginians, letting them just sit there. They will get more forces added to them. So no matter what the Greeks do, like, they have an okay army over here. They need to be building a lot of stuff in Tarentum to be able to continue to operate in the western part of the map, basically. So it's tricky business the whole way around. Make no mistake, but at least I see the roadmap for how the Greeks can stay competitive here, and hope that there's some shift over time that allows them to operate. That's going to be the key thing, I guess, moving forward. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. We'll hopefully have another video for you soon for turn 4, but this was turn 3. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you in the next one. Take care. Keep gaming.